Hi, my name's Kyle Pulley. I'm a YieldPro Specialist at our Hagerstown location there in Indiana.
And I'm Roger Boyd, a YieldPro Specialist at LaPel, Indiana.
Roger and I are going to have a little discussion today about CN and yield trends. And Roger's done a lot of data collection over the last 20 years to kind of look at these numbers and what we see. And the biggest challenge is maybe not low fertility, but it's when we have these years like the 2020 crop year when we have extreme yields above our normal average. And that can sway us one way or the other. So Roger, as we just finished up one of the, probably in my lifetime, better harvests we've ever had, what's some of the bigger concerns that have been brought to you by your growers?
Well, one of the biggest ones this fall was the yields that they were pulling off on corn, and the only concern they had was it was kind of hard on the ground. And
Yeah.
50 bushel extra corn and good prices, and they recognized right away that they were removing more than they had planned on, and wanted to be sure and take care of any additional needs. So it gave us an opportunity to kind of think through the system again. We deal with it every year with YieldPro, but kind of a refresher where we had been concentrating a lot on replacing crop removal with yield maps or yield goals or whatever. This was kind of a reminder to go back and think about soil fertility again, which is kind of where we started, and make sure that we're not missing the boat there, because the high yield corn not only removes more nutrients, but it requires a lot more to grow. And so the uptake side of the equation increases substantially in addition to the removal. And if you look at the last 20 years history, corn yields have increased by about 38%, and potash applications have increased by about 25%. So we are going the right direction, but we maybe haven't gone far enough, and that's indicated in average soil test results for soil test K being down about 7% over that same period of time. So if we go back and start thinking about soil fertility a little bit more, that is 80% of the crop requirement is going to the roots and stalks and leaves and cobs and all that, and only 20% is removed with the grain. So that 80% has to come from the soil fertility, and the soil fertility obviously has to be adequate to support that crop, or you won't have the yield.
Yeah, there's a lot of conversations I have with my growers, and it all stems around crop removal and crop replacement. And when we have these yields, we want to make sure that we get enough out to recover what we have removed in grain. But I think it's important to understand, aside from the weather, our biggest limiting factor could be CN levels. And if there's not enough in our soil level to combine with what we put on from a crop removal standpoint, you're going to limit your uptake. And then when we limit our uptake, we're automatically going to limit our yields. So I think you bring up a valid point of we've had these bigger yields. So yeah, we're going to put on enough for removal, but we've also now dipped into that soil bank of fertility, and we've pulled that down, and I think that's a good comparison to make. But with us being YieldPro Specialists, we have the opportunity to work with our YieldPro program, and I think they do a good job of tying the uptake and the removal a little bit in terms of how we are able to manage those numbers and how those things look. And I'll let you talk a little bit about how those go hand in hand together.
Okay. You know, the YieldPro program has for a long time recognized that there is two parts to the system, and one is the soil requirement and the other is the crop requirement. We've split those up so they can be managed separately and then brought together for the application. So the soil requirement has to supply the uptake portion of the system, which is the total, and the crop requirement is only 20% that you're removing, hauling out of the field.
So when you think of it that way, though, I mean, when we talk about true potash, so we got a 500-pound potash level of uptake. We're only removing 100 if we're going to pound of potash if we're going to put it in true fertilizer form. So that means we're going to have a net once that corn stalk decomposes and gets back into the ground. But if we only put out that 100-pound of potash level for removal, and then we pull off a little bit more because of high yields, now we've taken that bank that we had and we've drawn it down. And I think that's the value of YieldPro, is we're able to track that through and make sure that we always put out enough fertilizer to not limit ourselves in the crop uptake scenario.
Right. And then those can be managed independently but brought together for the total application, and to maintain that soil test level that supports future crops. And that's all adjustable depending on what the future of that ground looks like too. So we have the tools to address the length of time that we're going to be concerned about that piece of land.
Right. So after we had this great harvest of 2020, I think it's a great opportunity for growers to sit down with the YieldPro specialists and come up with a plan per field. Maybe not do it as an entire operation, but specify these plans per field for what they did and move forward. So I ask each of you, reach out to your YieldPro specialists, sit down with them, develop a CN plan to move forward to give yourself the best opportunity for high yield crops in 2021. Thank you for joining.